Hello, and welcome to my review of episode 11 of The Mandalorian called The Heiress. And this episode was really good. This might be like my favorite episode of all of them, even season 1. I don't know if it is, but it's right up there. It might very well be. It checked all of my favorite boxes. It was slimy, rusty, dirty, creepy, disgusting aliens. I love it. Just all the Dan Brown boxes. Just yeah, I loved seeing some of the aliens with all the tentacle faces. I think they're called Mon Calamari, and that might also be the species that Admiral Akbar is, but I'm not sure. They're the squid face guys. There was a squid guy hanging around Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi that had the squid tentacles. It was that guy, Squid Head. It was his species. It was pretty cool. And then there were also like Admiral Akbar aliens in the background. It was just well done. I love seeing those original creepy aliens and just kind of getting a glimpse into their lives a little bit. I know a lot of people hate when you explain and explore the backstory of things, like when the prequel trilogy came out. Patton Oswalt and other people were like, oh, we don't want to see Darth Vader as a little kid. And I don't know. I kind of agree with that, but I'm not I don't know. I in this case, I love it. It's world building. It's great. The casting in this one was great. There was, like no actors looked like they belonged in a sitcom. Like they all felt like they belonged in this world. They belonged in this universe. They didn't belong on the set of Friends. They didn't belong on the set of My Two Dads or whatever dumb sitcom they got those other actors from. No comedians. Again, I always say I do stand-up comedy myself. I love comedy, but I don't want to see comedians in this. It's not a comedy. The Imperials looked looming and creepy, and I don't know. I like the Imperial officer. I feel like they did a good job casting him. One thing I don't like about, I would say that this episode, the only thing that I think I hated was this recurring theme that they keep coming back to, the same old joke that they keep beating to death, that stormtroopers don't know how to shoot. And I know, yeah, that's been a stupid joke that people have been saying since time immemorial concerning Star Wars, is that the stormtroopers can't shoot. But this episode just keeps calling attention to it and just pointing at it. And they gotta stop doing that. Because if you cheapen the villains and make them stupid and bungling goofballs, then it takes away the sense that the hero or the protagonists are in danger. And you're not only are you cheapening the villains, but when you cheapen the villain, you cheapen the hero too. Because he's not beating people that are putting him in danger, he's beating idiots. Why not just make a TV show about getting the best of special needs kids? It's just the villain has to be better than the villain has to be better than the protagonist, because the protagonist has got to reach down inside himself. He's got to come up with ingenious ways of beating the villain. That's what makes interesting stories. If your stormtroopers are just walking targets, stop telling people that they can't shoot. Stop. I don't know. I'd like to see a smart stormtrooper once in a while. I'd like to see a stormtrooper who's has some knowledge of tactics. I mean, I didn't feel like the stormtroopers were just in this episode, they weren't really walking around in the open so much. I feel like I recall a lot of them taking cover behind doors and both of them, both sides, like the good guys and the bad guys, they were taking cover behind doors and shooting it out. They weren't just like walking out in the open and shooting from the hip and like Clint Eastwooding it up. I think I mentioned that in the last review where I was talking about how Clint Eastwood, he just walks into a room and he has nerves of steel, but everyone else doesn't. So they're like panicking and their hands are shaking and they're shooting into the ceiling. And Clint Eastwood is just no emotion and just pop, pop, pop. But I feel like this gunfight was a little bit cooler and a little bit grittier, and that they were hiding behind doors. They were, they were caring about their own lives and not acting stupid. So yeah, stop saying stormtroopers can't shoot. One thing I did think was weird was that at one point they were having this shootout, and the main guy was like, "Close the door," and so they closed them, and I didn't understand why the good guys could just open the door later on in the movie. Like, what did they do to get the doors open? Maybe it was because they said something about how they'd gotten into this room that was some kind of cargo control room, and I don't know. Like, I've always, like, in all the other Star Wars movies, R2-D2 comes along and he puts his little thingamajig into the wall socket and it twirls around, and then he makes stuff happen. I mean, maybe that's just a thing in Star Wars where, like, one of the good guys maybe knew, maybe he had one of those little gadgets, and he was able to access the door. But I don't know. I missed it. Whatever it was, that either they didn't explain it or I just missed it. There's a lot going on, but the world, like the world was beautiful. I like the planet that they were on. Like in Star Wars, normally you just see woods, ice, desert. But this one was more like a ocean-themed world. That was new. I'm sure George Lucas would like to see that. I feel like one of the things that he likes to emphasize is showing different planets and whatever. Yeah, the fights were pretty gritty. Like Baby Yoda got put in a dire situation, and I thought it just seemed like, how the hell did he survive that? But in previous episodes, like in the one right before this, when all these thugs were surrounding Din Djarin, the main character, he just powered up his little whistling bird arm gadget, and then Baby Yoda was like, "Uh-oh, I've seen this before." Hit the button, and the egg thing closed up. I'm assuming, that must have been what happened in this one, but it, I don't know, it just happened so fast that I was like, whoa, how, like, he's dead. But I love how the bad guys got the better of him. Like he was, I don't want to spoil it, but it was just like a gritty thing where he was put in this situation, and the bad guys were like jabbing at him with sharp implements, and he was like it just looked like, oh my god, how is he going to get out of this one? And the Mandalorian was rescued by other outside sources, and I was always taught that's not good in my creative writing classes, but I kind of like it in that it humanizes him a little bit more. Like, he's not the perfect hero. He doesn't always get the better. Like, he messes up. There was one part where these other Mandalorians were introduced, and I'll talk about this because I don't think it's spoiling that much. But like the tension of the meeting of these other Mandalorians was interesting because immediately they took their helmets off, and if I know anything about Mandalorians, and I don't know everything. I know there's like been comic books and stuff that I have not read that talks about their history and like the Darksaber and how they're natural enemies with the Jedi, and they never take their helmets off. And in previous episodes, we saw a guy wearing Mandalorian armor took his helmet off, and the Din Djarin Mandalorian main character guy was ready to blow him away in a shootout. So it was just like, once all three of them, there's three of them, they all take their helmets off. He's outnumbered immediately. He owes them his life. It was just like, what the hell is he going to do now? And also, like, the fights with the Mandalorian, they were just good. Like, I love them, because one of the best fight scenes in all of Star Wars, in my opinion, even though I hated the prequels, and I did another one of these reviews where I was talking about, where I mentioned, like, the rankings of which were my favorite Star Wars, and I said I liked the second episode of the prequels, Attack of the Clones. I said I liked the first 3/4 of it, but I'd never really gone back to watch it again. I did go back to watch it again recently, and it was rough. It was terrible. I might have to restructure my favorite Star Wars rankings. But anyway, I digress. One of the best fight scenes in Star Wars history, in my opinion, was in that movie where Obi-Wan Kenobi was fighting Jango Fett, and it looked like they were evenly matched. Like, between Obi-Wan Kenobi's force powers and Jango Fett, his gadgetry and fighting ability, like, it was just a fun fight. It was like one of the best fights I've seen in Star Wars. It was like Indiana Jones level fight. Like, to me, as far as fight scenes in movies go, on the top of the heap is Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones, he's thinking, he's using his environment, he's interacting with his environment, like, he's getting thrown against walls and getting beaten up and getting punched and blood's dripping from his face, and like, they're gritty. The lowest tier on my movie or TV show or film or whatever types of fight scenes are like Hercules, Legendary Journeys, Xena Warrior Princess, because in those fights they go into the fight and they got all their fresh-faced makeup on and then they like box it out with all the other people, and then they do all kinds of karate kicks, and the fights always end the same way. Somebody gets knocked out and they continue with their business, and they still got their no cuts on their faces, no makeup. I probably have cuts on my face because I just shaved, and I always bleed when I shave. Anyway, like, this was closer to the Indiana Jones. There were a couple of stormtroopers that got knocked out, but people were getting shot. And some of these Mandalorian, like the Mandalorians were like, I don't know. I liked the way they were cast, because like some of them were women, but they weren't like posturing the whole time and reminding everyone how tough they are. They just went into the they just went into their what they needed to do. They did it in a very procedural, business-like manner. They weren't posturing and overcompensating for, the fact that they didn't know what they were doing. They just looked competent, and that's what you want. Perfectly cast. The women they cast looked like they were they performed a sport here and there in their lives. They looked like they'd overcome some hardship. They just looked the part. And they did knock some stormtroopers out, but they looked but through most of the fight, they just presented themselves in a way that looked like they knew what they were doing. Like they looked like if they needed to, they'd put their thumb in your eye to get out of a jam. Unlike Cara Dune, I mean, the person who played her is an MMA fighter, but she wasn't an actor. These people were. What else? Yeah, I didn't need to explain. Or they didn't need to explain. Let me go off on another tangent before I talk about this. Like before, when I was watching this movie, I was thinking, I didn't catch who the director was, and I was thinking, I wonder who directed this. This must be Deborah Chow, because Deborah Chow probably directed my favorite episodes up until now. And then at the end of the show, when the credits came on, I was like, Bryce Dallas Howard, what? Like, she directed in the previous season. She directed one of the episodes that I hated the most. She directed that fourth episode where like the villagers were all bumbling idiots and they didn't know how spears worked, and like there was this one woman who was like like a crack shot, and she was hitting bullseye, but they never addressed like why she was the only one in the entire village who knew how to fight, knew how guns worked and whatnot. But I feel like in this episode, like you didn't really, like it didn't matter because like the writing was good enough so that like you didn't ask any questions. Like they were, number one, they were Mandalorians. You've already seen what Mandalorian culture is. You don't need an explanation. And plus they didn't have the goofy sitcom actors and like these two circumstances makes me wonder, like, why is it that Bryce Dallas Howard directed both one of my least favorite episodes and the best episodes? Like, why is that? What are the components of why I hated this episode so badly and why I love this one? And I don't know. Like, 'cause I remember, like, maybe it was episode 7 or 8 where I was talking about how it seems like sometimes the things I hate are based on the writer, and sometimes the things I hate are based on the director. And like maybe I should apologize to Bryce Dallas Howard for how hard I was on her episode in the last season, because this one was damn good. Like maybe the dumb stuff was all the writer. Maybe it's like Jon Favreau or whoever wrote it just didn't write a good episode that time. So maybe like I almost feel like I need to issue an apology. What else? Am I done talking about that? But yeah, I thought this was Deborah Chow, and then I was like, whoa, Bryce Dallas Howard. I feel like this episode was a perfect episode. Even though there was the Stormtrooper thing, the Stormtroopers can't shoot. Every episode's there's gotta be something silly about it. There's gotta be one thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Perfect episode. Perfection. Yeah, I loved the world. I liked how there was like, at one point a spaceship crashed into the ocean, and it looked like there was this. Some people call them AT-ATs, some people call them ATs. Nerds argue and get foam at the mouth about the correct terminology. But there was one of those things, and it had like a crane built on it, and it was like fishing the ship out of the water. I thought that was really cool that they brought back some of the designs from that. But anyway, how much does maybe this is something I need to look up. What is a director responsible for? Is the director sitting down with the animators and saying, okay, this is how you're going to animate this. I want this to move this way with this type of physics. Like I want it to be lumbering, or I want it to. Does the director just draw all the storyboards, or does the director just set up the cameras and tell you when to turn them on and turn them off? Like, I don't know. That's something that maybe I need to research. It's just like, how much of it is the writer? How much of it is just animators doing their thing? How much of it is the director? How deep is the director's hand in everything? Does the director sit down and with artists and be like, yeah, I want this drawing, I want that drawing, no, not that one. Oh, I forgot to finish my thought about the Mandalorians who took their helmets off. Yes, I loved how tense it was, and I didn't know where it was gonna go from there. But I like how there's like different shades of Mandalorianism. That's a word. Like in the real world, you got Christianity, you got baptism, you got Roman Catholicism, you got I don't know, you got evangelical I liked how this episode kind of fleshed out the world a little bit more. Like, yeah, we thought we knew all this stuff about Mandalorians. They never take their helmets off, etc. But here's a different subsect of Mandalorianism. This is a different, cult. Or a different, whatever. I think they called it a cult. But I like that kind of stuff. I feel like there should be... it's supposed to be representing a universe. So it's going to be as messy as the real world is. There are different races of people. There are different religions. There are different ethnicities. Like, I want to see Wookiees that are different species of Wookiees. Like, maybe some of them are black. Maybe some of them are gray. Some of them are white. Maybe some of them are different heights. Maybe they're different types of Ewoks. Maybe there are hut creatures that maybe some of them aren't morbidly obese. Maybe some of them are thin. Maybe some of them have two tails. Different colors. Like, I like that kind of thing. And I just liked how there's different subsects of Mandalorianism, and they just had different rules, different missions. Oh, another thing I liked about it is that they mentioned Ahsoka's name. Like, I don't really like the prequels, as I mentioned. I never really watched the prequel cartoon series because I just didn't like the prequels, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want that bad taste in my mouth. But anyway, a lot of people talk about how Ahsoka is Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, and she, although they called her a Jedi in this episode, supposedly she left the Jedi, and I don't know if she joined I don't think she joined the dark side, but she walked away from the Jedi and was apart from them. And I think that's why they always act like Luke Skywalker was the last of the Jedi, because technically Ahsoka is not a Jedi. But people who talk about the prequels and who talk about the cartoon series they seem to love Ahsoka. And I don't know much about her other than what I just said, but like just the fact that they brought her up and all this like buzz about that character and Rosario Dawson playing her, I don't know. It just like it just made my blood tingle. I was like, yeah, where is this going? I want to see what this person is like. There have been more famous YouTubers that are obsessed with Ahsoka, and how like she was an interesting, complicated character. Like a lot of people hated her at first, but then she just grew as a character and became more complex. And I don't know, maybe I'll go back and watch some of these animated things just so I know what's going on. But I just the fact that they were introducing this famous legendary character in this, and I just want to see what it's going to be like. Am I done talking about this? Did I talk about everything I wanted to? Yeah, I would say that this was like a perfect episode. I guess it's time to give it a grade. I feel like the only way I can give this episode is a good grade is by quoting the teacher from A Christmas Story, where she was like, sheer poetry, A plus poetry, Bryce Dallas Howard. Alright, that was stupid. Alright, I'm done. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.